aduna worima halkare fuddima wayla beji nyori naijara.
Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I don't really have an intro for this one.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Black Hawk Down, which came out in 2001, based on the book of the same name released in 1999. Directed by Ridley Scott. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows the 1993 raid in Somalia by US forces. They have gone in there to try to take down a warlord's lieutenants, but in the process, a Marine is injured and they are soon surrounded by the whole city.
We got a Black Hawk down, we got a Black Hawk down.
So this film kind of had a lot of attention when it released.
Right.
Because if I remember rightly, this film released about a month after the 9/11 American attacks.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was kind of like that moment in time when people were up in arms and they wanted to retaliate and they wanted to strike back at terrorism.
Yeah.
And then, Black Hawk Down is released. But it's one of those films where it's so easy to argue whether it's, military porn, whether, it's pro-war or anti-war. It opens up all of those conversations. It is a piece of entertainment. It is there to highlight, historical events.
Yeah, yeah.
And to this film's credit, a lot of the military personnel that were involved in the situation or are in the military have seen this film and have heralded it as one of the most accurate and authentic war movies ever to be depicted in film.
Nice. I was wondering how your intro would be for this movie. Like I sat down to watch Black Hawk Down, and I've seen it a few times. Love a good war movie, but like you said, this movie, along with a lot of war movies, can be seen as war porn. It's just there to make the country feel good about itself. Look at the soldiers and, aren't they all brave men going out to fight? And by the end of every movie that I see that gets that kind of tagline to it, I always feel like the men are not heroes. They don't feel like heroes anyway. They're covered in mud and blood. Their guns are empty. They're tired. They're questioning. You can see it in their eyes a lot of the time of, why are we here? What are we doing? And I love this movie. I'm going to go on record now because the first time I watched it, didn't get it. Thought, like you said, I thought it was just generic hero action stuff. Part of me also, at the start of this movie, felt like it was kind of pre-Michael Bay. I was like, is this a Michael Bay movie? No, it's a Ridley Scott movie.
Well, it was produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, who of course worked with Michael Bay on The Rock and Bad Boys.
Yeah.
So it does have,
It did have a bit of a feel like that at the start, but there wasn't really too many long lingering shots of camera going flying past big military equipment and guys going, whoa, too much. What this movie started off with was, massively historically inaccurate with with the tagline coming up. I mean, they say it's Plato. It's not. It's somebody else. But the words are the thing that has the meaning. And then we start off with Ridley Scott's eye of trying to depict to us, this country's suffering.
He breaks down the reality into literally bullet points.
Oh yeah,
It's just to condense down everything that's going on, because the film doesn't bog you down with the politics. It doesn't bog you down with the with everything that's going on. It just says, these are the facts that you need to know in order to follow this story.
And that's it, because this movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes long, without breaks. And this event is over 2 or 3 days.
Yes.
And so if you wanted to actually see it all in complete detail, you would have to follow something which is at least 3 days long. Ridley Scott condenses it down to 2 hours and 45. But still, the imagery at the start is enough to make you go, whose side am I on? These people are suffering, they're starving, I'm not going to get into the politics of a civil war in a country I've never been to or never really looked into. It's it's the way the world is. But then you get that balance, don't you, of the Marines at the base. You know, they've trained. This is their job. You know, and this is what they're having to go into. And you've got such a lineup. Like, I shit you not, people, at least 2 pages of research of just looking at people like, it's that guy, it's that guy, oh my god, it's that guy, hey look, it's that guy.
No, it is actually that guy.
That guy. You know, I was looking at one guy like, I know your face, who the fuck are you? I know your face, you don't look. It turned out to be fucking one of the Lannisters.
Oh yeah, Nikolai Castaldo. Yeah. I mean, this film is like, it's the debut of Tom Hardy.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
pretty sure it's also the film debut of Eric Bana as well.
No, I think he was in. I think he was in Chopper before this.
Yeah,
and possibly Hulk. I mean, Hulk might have come out just after.
Right.
But yeah, no, Eric Bana. Yeah, you know, and you've got Orlando Bloom in the background. You've got William Fichtner. You've got Ewan McGregor. You've got
Jason Isaacs.
Oh man, Jason Isaacs. I will say, just before we get too far into the movie, that some of the accents are a little bit...
Look, kid, you look like you're about 12, so let me explain something to you. I have a rare and mysterious skill that precludes me from going on the missions.
Typing.
Can you type?
No.
They try. The guys try, you know, but it just doesn't work. Tom Sizemore.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you know, like, he just has that look.
He does.
He does.
Well, he just, served in World War II under Tom Hanks, so you can forgive him for looking a bit dishevelled.
But you know, the premise is there. The Marines are there in the country to take down this warlord who is just controlling the country through fear. And we see that shot of Josh Hartnett, Eversman. He's in his helicopter. They're flying around and they're watching the truck of food come up, and then all this flood of people to run up and start stealing as many bags as they can. It starts spilling out, and then you get the local militia warlord lieutenant ride up in his customized fucking car with a fucking 50 cal on the back, and they just start shooting people. And rules of engagement: they're not shooting at the helicopter, so the helicopter can't shoot back. And they don't want to make it a political thing, so we're just going to have to leave it. And that's what this movie I love about is, it's just like, look, we're doing our job, you know? And yeah, those Marines could shoot all those guys from their helicopter really safely. But then the after effect of what happens just becomes a snowball of situations and red tape that none of us want to get into. So let's just, I don't want to say turn a blind eye, but that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the film, they set it up that they need to do this raid to go and take out Mohammed Farad Adid. But in reality, it was actually 2 of his lieutenants that were meeting there.
Oh, yeah.
And the plan was to take both of them out. They, the U.S. military were trying to weaken the infrastructure. To release the grasp that he had hold of the country.
That's it. Yeah.
But the film simplifies events and goes, look, we're trying to take him out. And that's the reason for this raid. And it's that motivation. For the soldiers to, have a mission, have a job.
It's a great plan. They got it down. Fly in there with the helicopters, have the Humvees, have the convoy.
They got the guy with the marked car.
Yeah, but it's the fact that, they're traveling in day, so their helicopters are going to be seen, They're in the middle of this fucking city. There's a reason why these lieutenants are meeting in this city, and it's because the warlord has the fucking control of the city. Everybody is walking around practically with an AK-47 or an RPG somewhere, and it's just, this is daily life for them. And every Marine is there going, yeah, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. We've got Blackburn, Orlando Bloom, who's just turned up. He's 18 years old. He's excited. He's wanting to prove himself. But everybody else is like, look, this is the job. We're nervous, but we don't let it show. We're going to go in, we're going to conquer, we're going to get some by the numbers, Marines. But I love the fact that you got like Tom Sizemore, who turns to those 2 guys and goes, it's all right for you guys sitting in your helicopter up in the air, flying around. We're down in the street. And it's just little omens as well. Like when Garrison, the commander, comes up and says, "Good luck, boys," and Josh Hartnett's like, he's never done that before. You know?
What's wrong? Nothing. Just never done that before.
It's that sequence when they're prepping and the guy's like pulling out his body armor and he's
Man.
yeah, won't need that.
Won't need that.
I think is it Grimes? Is it Ewan McGregor's
Yeah,
character?
Ewan McGregor. Yeah.
And he's just like, nope, you won't need to bring the water. Nope, you won't need that. We'll be in and out in 30 minutes.
No, oh man, yeah, that's it. And I'm just like, oh man.
It's film wise, it's a really good setup.
Yeah.
Now it's one of the biggest criticisms about Black Hawk Down is that, like, unlike say a Jerry Bruckheimer movie, you don't follow one person. You follow the entire platoon in this, and kind of as a result, there's not a lot of character development. There is for certain characterization. We get snippets of who these people are, but that is, it is surface level, and that is as far as it goes. But it's still enough for you to identify with most of these characters. And then, to be fair, when they all put their helmets on and they're all in their uniform, like a lot of the characters, a lot of the cast do get lost in that shuffle.
I will
and
admit
so,
that.
unlike the accuracy of it, they've all had their names written on their helmets, which in reality they wouldn't have. But as an audience watching at home, it's easier for us to identify, hopefully, who these people are.
See, I suppose for me, I've actually watched so many that I've gotten used to that, I suppose, through watching movies like The Green Berets with John Wayne, and Platoon, Casualties of War. After a while, Marines, soldiers do end up all looking the same once they put on their helmets and their uniform and they're just closed off. But I also think that goes hand in hand with the non-characterization, the non-development, because they just become soldiers then. They are following orders and they are trained to do just one thing. There is some development through some of them through the movie, but it's through, I suppose, the actions and tragedies that they have to go through.
Yes.
That, for example, like we said, with Grimes, with Ewan McGregor, he's never seen battle at all. He's been in the Marines for God knows how long, but he's never seen conflict yet. And yet in this film, I shit you not, I counted, he dodges at least 4 RPG shots.
Right.
And you're like, I wouldn't want to fucking go back out the line if that was how my day went.
It's all in the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse. This, my friend, is a science.
But the Marines go in there, and I love the fact that the local Lieutenant Warlord, he's got that network, of civilians who have all got mobile phones of different level, and they're relaying information back. The Marines have just left the base. There's a shit ton of helicopters heading in that direction, and he's like, okay, let's motivate. And so you see them, you see the, I mean, I don't mean to use it, but you see the skinnies as they prepare to go out. The local, I thought this was really funny. Without this whole movie as well, not a single Somalian was harmed in the making of this film.
Well, they didn't hire any Somalian extras or cast members in the film.
Exactly. So throughout the film, you see or feel or see simulated hundreds of people shot and killed. And yet, actually, no, none of them were.
I believe they, because Somalia, at the time of filming, especially and still today, it's a very dangerous area.
Oh yeah.
And so they couldn't film in the real locations. I think they filmed in Morocco.
Yeah.
And it's and hired loads of Moroccans as extras.
Yeah.
To play the Somalians in this depiction.
But really, Scott, like, we give him a lot of shit sometimes, mainly because of the Alien movies. But man, when he has a shot ready, he knows how to frame it. When you get those
absolutely.
helicopters flying across the water. I mean, like I said, that shot, I thought it was a Michael Bay movie, seeing those helicopters flying into the town. But then when you're down with the taxi driver, and he's right there surrounded by thousands of people just going about their day-to-day life, and he's like, look, I can't go over there. The building's over there, but I can't go over there because I'll get shot. And he goes over. The Marines all head in, right? This is the place. Delta goes in first, secures the prisoners. The helicopters start to move in. The Rangers start to drop out. Josh Hartnett at this point, Eversman, he's been given control of the unit because his buddy, played by Ian Grufford from Fantastic Four, suffered a fit right at the start. And you're like, wow, okay, so now he's in control of all these guys. And he's telling them to deploy out the helicopter. Deploy. And then they run up onto the roof, RPG up onto the shoulder. And it doesn't hit. I always forget that this one never hits the helicopter. The helicopter swerves to avoid it. And Orlando Bloom's character just falls from the helicopter.
Right. It is one of the most memorable moments in the film as well, when you just see his body kind of hit below the dust level.
Yeah.
And and the panic to try and get down there to revive him or see if he's okay. Now it's based on real events. Like Blackburn did actually fall from a helicopter, although in the book that it's based on, they don't mention an RPG being fired at that helicopter for the reason.
Yeah.
So I guess that was dramatic, creative kind of license there.
Yeah.
But either which way, the end result was still the same. He fell out of the helicopter.
And now he's there, and this whole plan has just gone, poof. All those years of training, all that preparation, these guys are top level. Every person is a fucking skilled professional in what they're doing. And now this is just completely just...
It escalates so quickly.
Oh, God, yeah.
It was supposed to be an in and out mission.
Yeah.
But then once, these casualties start occurring, or the injuries start occurring, and they weren't really expecting the local militia to come out in such force that very quickly turned this into a disaster. This mission was a disaster.
See, now I feel like they did. They kind of had a feeling that the local militia would go like this because you're in such a town which is just laying with weapons and trouble. That. They wanted to, like you said, get in and get out and not to worry too many people. But these people were so motivated. They had the barricades all set up. So Tom Sizemore's got this convoy of Humvees. And he's pulled up to the guys and he's just like, okay, let's start, getting these prisoners out. But then as they start to make their way back out, it's now a fucking maze. They
put blockades up everywhere.
Yeah,
and to funnel them through.
And fucking 50 cal outposts, with guards. So everybody's just shooting from rooftops and windows. You got your two buddies up in the helicopter, relaying information. Right, okay, you should probably head down this road and then turn left. And Tom Sizemore's just like, I'm telling you, there is no fucking road,
It was because of the delay between, the relaying of information.
Yeah.
He's like, you're going too fast, so the information's not getting to you in time as to which directions to take.
Yeah, and that's what because the film just jumps from so many people's different perspectives that I actually, maybe it's me, I prefer not sticking with just one character. I mean, we stick with Eversman quite a bit, but he's got the most... I suppose Rangers to deal with.
Yeah.
We jump into the conflict between Jason Isaacs and William Fichtner's character, because both of them are wanting to get out of there and do their job, but both of them are doing it two different sides. The helicopter comes in to actually try to start rescuing, doesn't he? And they take the RPG hit. And now we've properly got a Black Hawk down, because I love the way... And I want to bring him up now, actually. Richard Tyson, who plays Bush. Now, if you don't know who Richard Tyson is, you may not have known who Richard Tyson is. He was in 3 O'Clock High. It's a movie from the 80s. You might have seen 3 O'Clock High. We might do 3 O'Clock High at some point. It's got Richard Tyson in it. He plays Bush. And Bush is on board this helicopter. And the helicopter just, like, you see him holding on for sheer life. And I feel it, like... I was incredibly lucky to watch this movie really comfy in my front room with a beer and my headphones on, cranked up to fucking max. And it was like Call of Duty on acid. Honestly, when that helicopter spins round, you're like, don't go down, don't go. You don't want it to go down because as soon as it's down, they're just going to get swarmed. We even had Jeremy Piven playing Walcott, the pilot of this one. And I like Jeremy Piven.
Yeah,
he's done some good parts. And then... The helicopter hits, it's down, we hear those immortal words, and you've now got 3 different posts happening. You've got the Humvees who can't get out, you've got the helicopter that's down, and now you've still got the original Rangers that have already deployed, all spread out across the city. And I don't even think we're an hour in.
No, no, and it's fast and frenetic. Like once they get in there and the raid starts, it is just action packed right to the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Because they are condensing down like 19 plus hours of actual combat down to 2 hours of film time. So it really does feel like it's an endless gun battle.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure for those that were in there, it was as well. And yeah, so we're watching the Humvees. They've got the prisoners. They're trying to get them back to the base so that then they can turn around and head straight back in to rescue, the helicopter pilots that have gone down and the other Rangers that are kind of stuck, behind enemy lines now.
Yeah.
And so we see one of the gunners on the back of the Humvee take that bullet through the neck.
Yeah.
And then relaying the information that he's dead, and just like the panic, the reality setting in, like they're now taking casualties. When they get the convoy back to base and he opens up the back doors.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just red. Like, everything is just caked in blood. And he's like, we need to get somebody to hose down the back because we're heading right back in there.
Yeah.
And it's the reality of situations like that. And the film doesn't linger on moments like that, but the reality is, it's there. But then the film moves on and gets you back into, like, I guess, the adrenaline ride of the firefights when you have those moments, just there to remind you and to illustrate to you the reality of it.
Well, it's like you have that soldier at the base, don't you, who's like, Sarge, I don't have to go back out there, do I? And he doesn't. But they've had this ongoing message of no one left behind. You've got the brotherhood, you've got the camaraderie. These guys are willing and laying their lives down for each other. And each one of them is saying to each other secretly, like, this mission is FUBAR. This is all over the place. We're doing what we can. But then you get the moment where, like, that one soldier then is getting his stuff together and he's like, no, I've got to go back out. I've got to do this. When the second helicopter goes down, that's when you're like, fuck me. I'm not a military specialist. I've never fired a gun in my life, luckily, I suppose. But there's just some things I look at and I'm just like, why? The Americans had already made their presence felt by this point. People knew that they were in there. There was no really hiding from it. They're in the middle of a massive firefight. And like we said, the rules of engagement say that they can't start firing back until a certain time. But Jesus Christ, these people are wanting to kill everybody there. They are armed to fucking buggery. You had the helicopters there. You could have just started laying down fire, given them proper cover, and then pulled out and dealt with the situation after. The longer, Garrison was just trying to keep it all contained, was just the worst idea because he had no control over it anyway by this point. It was better just to lay down. They've got civilians walking along with the armed militia, and watching them swarm over the helicopters. Like, we get the first crash site secured with Eversman and his men, and so they're just waiting to obviously be able to get rescued. But when the second crash site happens and you've got Mike Durant, played by Ron Eldard, and he's still alive, those two snipers on board, they're like, drop us down, we'll cover him. And the general, it's fucking heart-rending, and the general's like, I can't give you that order. You have to say it. Because in no words of a lie, you're basically dropping down to your death.
Yeah.
We're asking to go in and set up a perimeter until ground support arrives.
And you realize that I cannot tell you when that might be. It could take quite a while.
Roger that.
There's thousands of people down there. You don't have enough ammo, But if we don't go down, this guy's dead.
Yep. Well, they go down and they help him, and they both sacrifice themselves. And it is actually, you're bringing up the sequence. This is my favorite moment in the film, because it was so harrowing.
Yeah.
When those two Rangers go in and they eventually take bullets and go down. There's one who takes like multiple shots and he still continues to return fire until the mob pull him to pieces.
Yeah.
And the pilot, they did actually manage to get him out, but like that moment when he sat in the cockpit and he's got the machine gun and he's just shooting anybody that gets close to him.
Yeah.
Now, granted, as well, I don't think the the glass was bulletproof, but you know,
Right.
for some reason it was in the movie. But yeah, like him eventually being dragged out by them, and then him having the last stand where he runs out of ammo.
Yeah.
And eventually is just knocked out while he's trying to clutch a picture of his family.
It's
And then all the way to the sequence where he is dragged off and he's kind of half interrogated by this warlord.
But that's the like I said, another beautiful thing about this movie is that you've got this Lieutenant Warlord who's basically like, no, we claim this prisoner because if they kill this guy like they've killed, you know, everybody else, it doesn't really stop anything. It just escalates the conflict. Yet, you know, the smart idea is to go, no, we're going to take this prisoner. And then you're going to have to take him back. And then you're going to have to admit being here and admit doing what you're doing. And we don't want you here. You know, it's like that general said at the beginning to General Garrison. You know, he's like, you shouldn't be here, American. This is a war. This is civil war. And the American's like, no, this is genocide. And you're like, yes, that's two sides of the same coin. You know, it's bad. But, you know, when you have that moment where he's looking at Mike Durant and he's just like, no, we're going to keep you here. You know, you think this is what we do daily. No, this is our way of life. And then you have that helicopter flying around the top of the city, don't you? Mike Durant, we will not leave you behind. And I'm like, fuck, oh, just everything's just fucked up.
Mike Durant, we won't leave you behind. Mike Durant, we won't leave you behind.
You know, but we head into nightfall, which, you know, is even worse. And the Rangers have set up their perimeter, haven't they? Mm-hmm. And they're trying to set up strobe lighting as well, so that the general decides to start sending helicopters through gun runs constantly throughout the night. I'm like, why weren't you doing this 4 hours ago? You know, this should have been it. And Eversman, he's got to, you know, take the strobe light. And he's got to throw it up on top of the roof. And he misses the first one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dramatic effect, yeah.
Of course, yeah. No, because in reality, they, you know, it was unfeasible to be able to throw those strobe grenades next to all of the militia. So in reality, they dropped those strobe lights on top of themselves. And so the military could then just fire at everything that wasn't.
Wow.
You know, it was outside of the strobe area, which kind of makes more sense.
Yeah,
So
no,
again, the film was like, creative license, we'll just bend it a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's still the kind of same effect. The result's still the same.
Yeah, I mean, every one of the groups, they all have these moments of watching, moments, I suppose, of sympathy, I suppose, where you're seeing people, you know, in their unit get killed. I mean, Eversman has his buddy Smitty, who gets shot in the back, and that bit is harrowing when they're trying to get the vein.
Yeah, out of his leg.
Yeah.
It was, you know, one of the arteries had snapped and retreated back up into his thigh, into his pelvis.
Oh, man.
And they were like, you know, no morphine. We're just going to go root in there, pull out the vein, and then clamp it. And it's bloody. It's messy.
And then, I mean, you've got Jason Isaacs talking to one of his soldiers as well, you know, and like, can you still hold a gun? Then, you know, you shoot anybody who comes through that door, and the guy can barely stand.
Right.
You know, and you got Tom Sizemore driving back. For that part was fucking harrowing, as they're driving down the road, and his two buddies up in the helicopter like, you're going to have to turn around and go back. He's
right
like,
back through.
are you fucking kidding me? We just come through there. And then the front windscreen explodes onto his driver's face.
Yeah.
Sizemore gets shot in the neck. It's a miracle that all of them weren't just fucking killed. But then at the same time, it's testament to who they are, what they were doing. You know, once they had their corners covered. Eric Bana, when Delta move in, you know, just drop me off here, I'll make my way back through the sea. Oh, okay, that'll be good. You know, and him and his three buddies just start moving in, taking corner by corner. You know, it gets to nighttime, and they come across that fucking cannon, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, the warlord's got this cannon firing at the position, and then he's on the 50 cal doing it. And they just walk up, silently take out the cannon guys. Eric Bana's got to have this little moment like, look at me, aren't I cool with this giant gun?
Yeah, and he blows the shit out of them. yeah, and then it is literally a case of, now we just need to get out of here. Like,
yes.
You know, we've left as little people behind as possible. Now it's time to retreat and get back to base.
Yeah, Yeah, they call in, obviously the general finally gives in and calls in some extra additional forces.
He calls the Pakistani forces because they were kind of observing and weren't aware of the the Americans did this without letting them know.
Yeah. Which is, how they do Black Ops, but then...
Now, there's again a lot of criticisms depicting the lack of the Pakistani forces that were also engaged in the firefight. There's reports that the Pakistani forces did retreat early on into the conflict, but there was other fighting force. I think it was the Malaysians that were also in the fight, and are not really given any to no screen time in this film at all.
No,
and they were an important part and fought alongside the Americans in the raid, and the film doesn't even mention them. So it's understandable to just go like, that was a part of history, like why weren't they mentioned? But it does then, in terms of the film and storytelling, it stacks the odds against the soldiers we've been following in this film as to whether they will actually make it out.
That's it. Because it's the same thing about the local militia, I suppose, as well. It's like you said, it was just a constant firefight, condensed into this movie, which shows that to some people they'd said, it shows that type of people as barbaric and just bloodthirsty, and I'm like, no, I can imagine somebody firing AK-47 getting killed and then somebody else just picking it up and wanting to fight, because this is the world they live in. Not to the extent that obviously Ridley Scott is showing us, but at the same time I do want to be home by 3 hours with this movie. And once Tom Sizemore has made his way back, with the Pakistani forces, they're like, look, we've got all the injured, we've got everybody on board, but there's not a room for everybody. So some of you are going to have to run. And it's such a beautiful moment. Personally, I love this moment. Is the guy's like, look, we're just going to have to run out. And they just start running out, following the convoy, and they're just being chased out of the city. Like, I'm not justifying what the militia did, but this is how they fight, really. They don't want these aliens in their town, so they're going to fucking chase them out with gunpoint.
Right.
And I'm not justifying the Americans, but at the same time, this is what they trained for. We're going to walk out of here. We're not going to allow ourselves to be captured. And they run all the way back to the stadium, don't they?
Yeah. It's known as the Mogadishu Mile.
Right, yeah.
Which they had to run. Now, granted, the film shows them running literally all the way back to the stadium, which, again, is not true. Like, they did all eventually get convoyed out of there, but cinematically, like, visually, it works. It looks like they got home.
Yeah.
I can understand bending it there ever so slightly.
Well, yeah, and then when they get into the stadium and they're just... so a lot of them are just crashing, they're resting. But you've got like Eric Banner, there's more guys out there, so
he just eats some food, preps himself, ready to go.
But that's what he does. That's what he does. I'm guessing Eric Banner's character.
He has that important moment, really. It's for me, it's like the thing that really underlined. And he was just like, I go back home, and people are just like, oh, what are you doing out there? Why do you do that? What's it like out there? And he's like, they don't understand.
They don't get it.
And those that are in the military have often said that, like, they kind of have to leave that. It's impossible to leave that part of yourself behind. And to explain it to a civvy. Per se. But he says that it's not about any of anything. It's really all it's about is the man or woman beside you.
Yeah.
And you're there for them, and they are there for you, and that is all that matters, and everything else is just gone. And I was like, that was I've heard that sentiment many times before, and so like, kind of underlying the film with it. I was just like, okay, that's fine, fine. And the film doesn't shy away from when Garrison goes to see the injured in the medical tent, and you just see that pool of blood just splat on the floor, and he's just on his knees, just mopping up these soldiers' blood. I'm like, well, I mean, granted, you're the one who sent them in on this botched mission, but it wasn't a botched when he fought it out. It was supposed to go, and it just one thing just escalated this huge, massive conflict. And like you said, you get like, I know for some people they'd say, oh, like it lingers on it too much with like Josh Hartnett at the end talking to his buddy, about him, how he died and how he's going to go home and talk to his son and stuff. But for me, I knew this when I was going into the movie.
I knew it was going to be like that. I mean, Josh Hartnett's on the fucking front cover, so I knew at least, if anything, we were going to follow him. And following him lead this squad, try to keep them alive, covering all corners, covering all bases, you know, watching his close friend die and him having to deal with it. You know, you had the other guy, like, giving out that letter, and his mate's like, I'm not taking that. And he's like, you fucking take it. Because this is what we do. This is how we cover. Others are trying to call home and their partners aren't there, you know, and others don't even have anybody at home. This is just their way of life. Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ian, what is your favourite scene from the film?
Man, you know, I was making my notes for this movie, and I was just like, you know, the whole fucking film is just one glorious favourite scene. But there's one sequence that will always get me with this movie. And it's the sequence between Ewan Bremner and Tom Hardy. They are playing two M60 carrying Marines, and they've been asked to cover this one area while the rest of the Rangers obviously secure the crash site. Well, they kind of get left behind. And at one point, Bremner says to Hardy, like, don't fire that gun near me, you're going to deafen me. And Hardy does, and it deafens Bremner. And it pays off. It's what's really nice about this whole sequence is you've got this massive conflict. We're following the generals, the warlords, the militia, the helicopter pilots, the medics, the fucking rangers, the deltas. We're following the seagulls in the fucking sky get some screen time. And you boil it all down to these two guys who then hook up with a third guy, and now they've got to try and make it back to, you know, the rest of the Rangers. And it's just, yeah, it's claustrophobic, it's scary, but it's also funny.
It is in a dark way, because he's kind of partially deaf.
Exactly.
So it's just like it's a serious situation that they're dealing with, but yeah, it does feel pretty humorous because of the situation.
And you want them to get back to the Rangers, and you want them to all hook up so that they can all start covering stuff, and then the reality of stuff comes in. And like I said, after that, like I said, the whole film for me is just amazing. I love a war movie.
Yeah. I like this. We mentioned the sequence. I mentioned it before when the second Hawk goes down.
Yeah.
And the sniper squad. Yeah. Also, I mean, the first moment, like it's a memorable moment when that first helicopter gets hit with the RPG. And you know and them saying it over the radio, Black Hawk down. We got a Black Hawk down.
Yeah.
It's like the whole film just goes. It just opens up like what's going to happen next. And they actually used real recordings from the battle to play in the background. So some of the radio chatter does feel very believable.
I'm glad you brought up the audio, because when the film's fight sequences first started, I was like, oh, this I don't see anything. It's just a little bit of gun muzzle flare and some audio in the background. But then that started to really suck me in, especially when it just started to become really close quarters. And so, like I said, when I had my headphones on, cranked up to 100, I'm like, this is amazing. I can hear every crack, every bullet, every reload, every scream, every shout. You know, I felt like I was in there with them.
Well, the film did win 2 Academy Awards,
Nice.
One for editing and one for music or sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Like, now, granted, they use different sound effects for the different helicopters, which, you know, only if you really know your helicopters would you know the sounds. But exactly, it all sounded really, really good. The ricocheting bullets, the explosions, the shell casings hitting the ground, like a masterful sound design and an excellent music score, for sure. I guess my other favourite sequence was the hospital surgery sequence, just because of how squeamish it made you feel, like trying to perform this operation in the middle of a gunfight.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And I guess it's not my favourite, but it's one of the most memorable sequences, and it's right at the end of the film when they're evacing out, and you have this old guy walking across the street with a dead child in his arms. Now, yeah, the film doesn't depict or show, you know, this conflict from, you know, from the Somalians' point of view, but that's not what this film is. Like, it didn't need to. Like, you don't need to. Now, granted, you want to know, but that's what this film can do, is make you go and see what happened from the other perspective. But we do see, like, there were, you know, hundreds of civilians, women and children were killed during this firefight.
Yeah, and after as well. I mean, it didn't just end
Oh,
here.
exactly.
It had knock-on effects at all. But I mean, I do feel like you do kind of get a bit of a perspective from their view. You follow the warlords and the militia and and the civilians just enough to make you go, oh shit, that's I don't sit there and go, woohoo, America. I sit there going, war, fuck it. Like, yeah.
Well, Ian, I think I know the answer to this one, but do you recommend Black Hawk Down?
I do recommend Black Hawk Down. I'm not gonna say pro-war and all that kind of stuff. Everybody don't careful with the chat. Don't explode all over me. But as I've watched enough war movies in my time, to know that film has come to the point to not try to glorify it. Like I said, you go back and watch John Wayne and the Green Berets and see how they portray Marines. Like you then go and watch Saving Private Ryan and see how the soldiers fought in World War II. Then you go and watch Black Hawk Down. There are other movies that I can't remember at this time that are just as good, but I can't watch Black Hawk Down a little bit either. Like if it's on and I'm just gonna catch it, if I'm gonna start watching it, I'm seeing it to the end because I can't else. I can't even start it because once you start it, you're in there till the end until you make that mile run back.
Right. Yeah, this is an easy recommendation for me. This is one of the best war movies with excellent cinematography, editing, and direction. It's a great blend of action, explosions, and rising tension, with moments of courage and honor shining through the small amounts of character development. The casting was superb, and although the characters got confusing and often lost in the mayhem, everyone involved was utterly convincing, and for me, standout delivery by Eric Bana and Tom Sizemore. As usual, Hans Zimmer brings his A-game with a fantastic film score, capturing the action with the frenetic electric guitars and drums, mixing Eastern and Western styles, which collide effectively well. This really is a tense movie, and on a technical level, Ridley Scott, he can't be faulted for quality execution from storyboard to film, aided by having a fantastic screenplay by Ken Nolan. This is a very realistic war movie. It's gritty, it's ugly, and it's epic. And sometimes it is harder to watch in that war is hell.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
I just want to do it right today.
Just watch your corner. Get all your men back here alive.